closer. Did you hear any of that? I think I had myself on mute. Well, happy Friday anyway. Welcome. This is part why we embrace humanity on the show, because things happen. But welcome to Career Launch Live. Welcome to the last episode of our season. I could not be more thrilled to have this very particular guest here to speak with us about the future of work. We're going to kind of get into the specifics of what we need to progress. We're going to get a little creative, and we're going to have a little fun along the way. So without further ado, I cannot wait to bring her on, the one, the only Sam Eaton.
Hi,
Welcome. Oh my goodness. So first of all, tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Great. Thank you, Catherine. And really, really great to be here today. So I'm Sam Eaton. I'm the founder of Mindability. We are an organization of business coaches, but we're here to make a difference. And the reason why I use "but" there is my take is there are a lot of franchises out there who've been in corporate for 25 years, right? They've never run their own business. I've run 5. I've made all the mistakes, so my clients don't have to. I want them to be successful on their terms, not mine.
Oh, I like that. That's really cool. But that's also part of leadership too. It's just that mentality of it's not about my way or the highway. We want you to set you up for success as you are. How very inclusive of you.
Yeah, and do you know what? The thing I love the most is when we get the postcards, WhatsApp these days, right? Showing my age now. But of family photographs of, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my work with you. They would be. All we've done is expedite their growth. So that to me is priceless. And we're on a mission to get more of those WhatsApp messages around the world from clients we've helped.
That is so wonderful. I like that. It's just about making their lives better. That's really cool. So I want to talk about the future of work today, right? Where we are versus where we're going. So when you think about the world of work and / business right now, what are some things that you are seeing currently in the marketplace that are maybe different from a few years ago?
Great question. The thing that I'm seeing currently that I'm most excited about and I'm pleased to see is we really have broken down a lot of borders and barriers. We've got a long, long way to go, Catherine. Wow, have we got a long way to go. Consultancy, in the world of consultants, we are now seeing our consultants as a fundamental part of our team. The gig economy is alive and kicking, which is a great thing. Quality of work, we hear it, so many of us talk about it, but it's great to see that it's an actual priority. And those who are in leadership positions who really value that are doing a lot of work right now around that. They're listening to more and more experts. And they're taking words out of their vocabulary, like "you're wrong."
That's a good one.
It's a big one.
That's a good one to remove. I just had a phenomenal experience at an event called HR Disruptor, and we had Lois Starsgaard. I think that's how you say her last name. Sorry, Lois, if I butchered it, but she came in and did a wonderful presentation. And one of the things that she taught was that even people who are inexperienced have equal value scientifically. I mean, she had the research and everything, present equal value when it comes to trying to innovate, when it comes to trying to find solutions. And so just outright telling someone they're wrong because they don't have the experience or they're not at a certain level is completely unproductive. So I'm very happy. Plus, it's also discouraging, right? From the psychological aspect, it's just not very helpful.
No, not at all. And we've, it's interesting because I've, just come back, hence the bags under my eyes, from 2 days at Unleash in Paris. It was wonderful. It was their 10th anniversary. It was the first time in 3 years you had 6,000 HR leaders from around the world, innovation and tech and everyone else in one room. It was a phenomenal event and great to see so much progress in an era where there's still so much fear that's been fed into us on a daily basis by mainstream media.
And I do want to hit on that. So I'm really glad you brought that up because I do want to hit on that. So there's a lot of fear right now for leadership, for HR, for business owners. There's a lot of my friend Jan Barlow calls the shame and blame game. There is a lot of negativity, and you shouldn't, you shouldn't, you shouldn't, you shouldn't, you shouldn't. Well, how effective is that? I mean, anybody who understands psychology, sales, which sales is psychology, but if and all that type of thing, parenting will tell you that if all you do is act negatively, you're going to get a lot of negativity back. You're going to get a lot of pushback and fight, as opposed to actual productivity and positive outcome like creativity, innovation, that kind of thing. So it's not productive. It's not a productive way to do it. Now, that does not mean that if someone is doing something awful, that you shouldn't address it. It doesn't mean that you don't fix racism that's in your company. It doesn't mean that you don't fix sexism. It doesn't mean that if somebody has done something unethical, that you don't deal with that. That's not what I'm saying. But your culture and your emotional agency, like I talked about yesterday with Ira from Emergency. You can tell it's Friday, man. My brain has just gone click. I'm ready for the weekend. But Ira with Emergy, we were talking about emotional agency and how, actually using your emotional intelligence and putting that into action and being aware of everybody's emotions in the workplace, how that actually helps. And I wanted to get your thoughts about that. What are some things that people can do to help everybody where they're at emotionally in the workplace?
Great question. And it's a big subject, and one that obviously we talked about at Unleash. And in fact, I did a post about it yesterday, or did I do it for today? They're all blended into one this week. There was a great point where we were talking about being obsessed, and actually being obsessed with your goals. And when you look at the outside world, we've been obsessed with recession. Some of us are borderline obsessed now with a depression. We have been obsessed with a pandemic. Everyone has. We've been obsessed with potential nuclear war, with this and that. And that obsession has created a lot of fear. It's created a lot of emotional strain. What we control is the controllables. Many of us have heard that over the years, but let's put that into practice, right? What does that actually mean day to day? In our lives, I can control the fact that I'm in charge of my destiny, my family's destiny, the destiny and well-being and health of my friends, my family, my clients, and helping them to be successful. So I can either look at all that fear mongering. I'm not saying it's not there. Of course, these are real things. But actually, let's start to be obsessed with ourselves and our communities and our bubbles around us. And let's make that our priority for 2023 to really help nurture and manage our own health, our own well-being, and set goals for ourselves.
I like that. I do. And I think you're spot on. I think that a big part of what we need is to let people be where they're at with their emotions, but then also encourage them with, good mental health advocacy and with promoting the right kinds of behaviors in the workplace, that type of thing, to help encourage a healthier mindset and to let people set their own goals. In fact, I saw, and I cannot think of the name of it right now, but when I was at HR Tech a while back in Vegas, there was a great new technology that helped people map their own emotions, and it gave suggestions of, okay, hey, it's this time of day, and at this time of day, this usually happens. So let's do this as a solution. And it was really cool. It was a really neat tool. And I also have a client, Synchro, and I talked about this yesterday too. So I'm going to tell on myself because when I very first saw this, I was like, this is the dumbest, most juvenile thing I've ever seen in my life. And then after I experienced it for a couple of weeks, I just was flabbergasted at the difference that it actually made. So at the beginning of every meeting of any kind, they ask you what color you are, which is based on our traffic light system here in the States, right? So green is good, yellow is and then there's red, and then there's in between. And every person goes through and they can say what color they are, and they can share why or not. And it's entirely up to them. And what I realized was, A, it was a good way to measure, should we be making decisions in this meeting? Because if everybody's at a red, or even most people, maybe don't make decisions that day,
Exactly.
and it let you know who needed help. And it let you know who was great and rocking, and you could share in their joy with them. And it was a really cool experience to be part of that. And it was so simple, and it was kind of fun and a little bit silly, but it worked so very effectively. So I think those kinds of tools are needed too, to address, all right, this is where we're at, and this is what this means for our business.
Exactly. And isn't it funny, doing something like that, and I've seen it work in other organizations, when you ask someone how they're feeling, what's our automatic reaction? I'm at work, I've got my colleagues around me, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm fine is probably the most dangerous thing that we can hear, because there's so much that's going on behind that. In some instances, and many, of course, people are fine, but in others, they're not. So having those kind of tools in place to be able to regulate are a really, really great idea. And particularly in those environments where they are 100% remote. We advocate remote. We are remote ourselves.
Oh, right. Yeah.
We understand, however, and hey, I've just spent 2 days in a massive event with thousands of people. It is great to have that human contact. We need that balance, and we're still trying to find ways that we can look after the well-being of our teams in the right way for them, because looking after my well-being is different to you looking after yours. And I feel we're underestimating the job that leadership really have in being able to manage that right now. We're very good at criticizing leadership, right? Oh, you should
Right.
be. I think you should be. Great. Try being in their shoes right now.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's not. And it never was easy to be a leader, I don't think, but I can't imagine that it ever was. But I think right now there are some very particular challenges, especially as we're now suddenly very global. And people, I think, forget how quickly globalization really happened. It was so rapid. It was just, once cell phones became smartphones, it got really ridiculous really fast. And that was not that long ago.
No. And here's a funny thing that we're all learning to deal with, but improve. So we all come from different societies. We all come from different places where how we read body language and facial expression changes. And I had a great example from a coach recently who was coaching multiculturals for an executive coaching program. And he said to me, Sam, here's a funny thing. So you've got the Brits and you've got the Americans and maybe French and Italians, and we're all very visual. We're vocal. We use facial expressions. We use our hands. We use everything else. And then he said, I had another bunch of people on the call from different cultures where they don't show any facial expressions, no emotions on their face at all. It's very hard to read them. So again, we're not only dealing with that in person, and I've got many, many stories of, HR leaders and business owners who had to deal with that in person. And by that, I mean, make sure that they were being inclusive across the board.
Right. Right.
But now doing it on a screen as well is even more complicated.
It is. It is so very much. And for several reasons. There are several reasons that it's more complicated. Not the least of which is that because of some physical and neurodiversity, screen time can actually be very physically dangerous for some people.
Yes.
And so it is very important to allow for limiting of screen time, to allow instead of, and of course, sometimes you may want to use Zoom or WhatsApp or something like that so that you're not, charged crazy fees for calling one country to another, but allow off screen, unless they're presenting, there's not a reason for somebody to be on screen. So, be flexible, that kind of thing. But you're right, it's a learning process, right? You're just having to learn these kinds of concepts. So I do think a lot of grace needs to be given to companies and leadership that are trying. Now, if they're not trying, maybe kick them in the hiney a little bit, kind of kind of get them going, give them a little taser prod real quick and just get them boosted into the right direction. But if they're trying, help them out, and I just heard somebody say the same thing about the DE&I efforts, which is if your company is actually trying, not just doing that, hey, we put some verbiage on our website, now we're done, hooray for us. If they're actually trying and they're missing the mark, which happens all the time, just nicely go to them and go, I appreciate everything you're doing. Here's some great things. Here's a couple of things I did notice. I would be glad, here's my suggestions, or I'd be glad to help with that, or whatever. Have some kind of, idea of where they ought to go, or here's an article that may help, that kind of thing. Because it's not simple, and there's so many different kinds of diversity. I mean, I was just doing a talk on this, and there's right now about anywhere from 14 to 16, depending on how you look at things, just big groups of diversities, and there's little mini diversities in each one of those. And so it's so much to deal with. And by the way, if a company thinks that one person can do this, they've lost their minds. That's not a thing for so many reasons. But, I think for the future of work, we need to give a lot more grace right now to people. And I think we need to focus on education.
I am so glad you said that. One of the really interesting things that we talked about in the show is that one of the highest investments, as you'd expect, has been in leadership and development. And yet, it was either 26 or 29% of recipients in a specific study were saying we are still dissatisfied with the outputs and the outcomes. That's not mean to say they're saying it's failed. And I haven't gone into the data yet to really analyze it and take away the true meaning of it. But the fundamental point is, when we look at the future of work and we look how we are developing, yes, large organizations are continuing to invest in this. They're also recognizing that they've got a long way to go. We talk a lot now about hyperconnectivity, hyper networking, the fact that we have to be super flexible, the fact that, this seismic change, and in many instances, very painful change for some people, isn't going to go away anytime soon. And interestingly, I was talking to, a fellow coach this morning who was over from the States. And she was saying that if you think about it from a neuroscience perspective, our brains aren't used to constant change. In fact, it's not good for our minds to go through constant change. And yet this is going to continue for at least another next 3 to 5 years. And people keep telling us we need to be, scared of machines. We need to be this. There's an element where they are good, and we are recognizing, as many instances we've seen, they will never 100% replace us, which is the fear.
Right. Oh yeah, that's not a thing. No. I could tell you, as somebody who's had so many people tell me that their AI can do exactly what I can do as a recruiter. Okay, fine, show me.
Yeah.
And not anywhere close. And the human mind is just capable of too many wonderful, beautiful, beautiful things. But I think very much to your point, some larger companies are already doing some things with education, but I think even more needs to happen with that. And one of the best benefits that I'm seeing come out right now that I'm super excited about is companies saying, we allot this much per person, a couple $1,000s per year for you to increase your education however you see fit. As long as it is somehow related to your job. You can take a college course, you can get a certification, you can go to a convention, you can, whatever it is that you want to do. Here you go. Here's money to do it and learn and grow. And I think that is spectacular. And it's going to give people so many more opportunities. It's going to create a lot more opportunities for the businesses, because these people are going to bring that knowledge back into your business. So what a spectacular way to invest in your development. I think that's just wonderful. I could not be more excited. And also education of our leaders. I'm so tired of seeing one of the things I really want to see, and we're starting to very slowly, very, very slowly, is just throwing people into management and going, good luck. Good God, no. This is one of the hardest skills that you can possibly learn. You need to be trained for this. And even if you're a little bitty company, there are still people that you can send them to. There are classes that you can put them in where they can learn the skills that they need and how to better communicate with their people. Because, folks, if nobody ever told you, let me be the first, when you're a manager or leader of any kind, your job is to take care of your humans, period. That's it.
One interesting exercise, particularly with larger organizations that we work with, we take everyone through a listening exercise. And it has the most profound effect when we come back in the room. And ironically, Samantha actually means good listener. And until I was trained on listening, I generally, as we all do, thought I was a good listener. And then I realized I did listen to respond. I did interject because I was so excited. I wanted to add to the conversation. I wasn't being rude, but I was also missing a lot by not taking that step back and going into the silence almost. And the most profound thing we've seen across the board with every single person when we've done this exercise with them has been, my God, I hadn't realized how much I haven't heard.
Yeah, that's a revelation.
Yeah. So you're right. Those interpersonal skills really need to be honed.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a lot of exciting stuff out there and many, many more exciting things to come. I fundamentally believe that we're at HR and the role of HR and all of us who are in that sphere are really at the cutting edge. And one of the things I often say to the majority of my clients, because most are HR consultants and consultancy founders around the world, is yes, the HR leaders and the HR teams are burnt out, but actually these guys are even more burnt out because the internal teams are coming to them. And where do these guys go? So
yeah, trust me, I know.
that listening piece and that those interpersonal skills, you're never going to stop learning, right? I mean, it's like most of us. How many coaches, Catherine, have you had in your life? I know I've had a lot.
Oh, I can't even count the number that I've known at all. Couldn't even start to.
Right. So, this is an ongoing phenomenon. And the more that we appreciate this, and rather than say, okay, we're good, the job's done now, the more that we realize actually we can cut ourselves a bit of slack and go, okay, so what's next, rather than
right,
we're done.
Right. And I do what you mentioned, the sad little HR people and the HR consultants. So I do want to say real quick. So I had and I'm going to tie into what you were just saying. So there was an image a while back. I love manatees, very big nature person. There was an image a while back of a manatee that was just floating sideways. And he just looked so just downtrodden, just like, I can't anymore, you guys. I've eaten all the cabbage and the seaweed and I've swam so far and I just can't, you guys. And he's just floating sideways, just flopped over. And I feel like that's the world of HR right now. Like we're all just the manatee, just like, just laying there, just flapped over. Like we can't do it. Help, just help. Because every time we think we've got it, it's just a hard left. And it's been, the last few years have been so crazy. And I'm excited about it because I think we're going to finally get to where we should be in HR in the next 3 to 5 years. I think it's going to take a few more years. Very excited about that, but it's a lot right now. It's kind of a lot. So back to the giving grace aspect, first of all. But also I think it's really interesting because right now, this is a great opportunity as we're flailing about sadly in the water to to stop and take stock of, okay, we can't make everybody happy, right? So let's figure out, these are the things that actually really matter, and these are the things that we need to prioritize, and how are we going to educate, and how are we going to move forward. And I feel like a lot of HR's job is becoming education. It wasn't always that way necessarily. There was a lot of the compliance and all that kind of fun stuff. But now we're getting more into the education aspect and teaching people and helping them to be better advocates for themselves, helping leaders understand how to better work with their people. And it's really kind of cool. I got to witness here in the States, and I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but a few months ago, I'm sure you know, we had a very important piece of legislation overturned. There were a lot of emotions around it. So many. It also affected benefits very heavily. And so one thing that I kept coaching everybody is, you have to address it and give space and have emotions and know how to talk to your people that are having feelings about this. And yeah, they don't need to get into a political discussion in the workplace, but you need to balance letting them have their feelings with this, and kind of going through that and coaching that and educating about these different things, educating about DE&I stuff, because oh my gosh, I have had some managers say some things to me that were so funny and so misguided. And I'm just going, oh no. Like, please don't say or do that. Okay, let's talk about this. Let's coach, and let's move forward. Explaining to people where the line is of, here's where, the inclusion of you and the inclusion of them begins. And how do we compromise that when they butt heads? And that's such an educational piece. So I'm curious your thoughts about the evolution of HR, and is it moving more towards education, or is I've also heard the theory that HR is going to kind of split, and you're going to have we're the compliance and we deal with the the problems that arise, and then here are the proactive. So you'll have the reactive HR and the proactive HR is one theory I've heard. I want to get your thoughts.
Okay, so mine's slightly different.
Good.
We are coaching all of our clients to get away from compliance as quickly as possible. And the reason why we say that is going to be done by a machine. It's easier done by a machine. So
yes,
let the machine do that. Your role,
machines and legal, just let them handle it.
Right. And your role is now becoming much more commercial, as well as about the people, which means that when the goals are set, a lot of us have been trained in SMART goals, but I'm going to be quite controversial now. Not many of us know how to use them and use them properly. And I took one company through an exercise on the request of the founder at the beginning of the year, and it took us a good 2 months to get them right. So they were absolutely balanced, and they connected between every team member and where one started and one finished, and right up here with the overall business goals. I also then went in and we said, okay, so look, the landscape's changing constantly. How flexible are you? And what are you doing to make sure that the business plans and the goals behind this are constantly evolving and changing too, right? And that's something
absolutely.
And that's something that, again, I fundamentally believe that the HR professionals, those in-house, and obviously the owners who work with us will need more and more expertise and guidance on. They need to be more financially literate and astute to be able to weather what's coming. I think a lot of it's exciting, but it is tough. I'm not going to sit here and be fluffy and go, yay, this is all really fun and it's going to be great. It's not. This is going to be tough, right? More toughness coming, more of the same to come. But there is opportunity, and that's where I think, what does that look like? We use a lot of future back thinking models now, rather than present forward, because the data that we have today is going to be redundant tomorrow. So what's the point?
Right. Well, right. Yeah. And I do want to really, I love I love that idea that you're discussing. And I think that really ties into the first part of what I was saying about it's becoming a much more educationally based role. Also, I think HR people are going to have to grow a little bit more of a spine. Like, I don't mean to hate on my people, but a lot of HR people I know are kind of like, okay, whatever you say, Mr. Boss Man. All right. No, they're going to have to start going, all right, sorry, sorry, sir. With all due respect, this is how we've got to do this. And there's nice ways to do it, right? There's the best ways to go about it, but you've got to have that strength and also the autonomy in your role to go, no, this is really how we need to handle it, so on and so forth. I think that we're going to see a lot more autonomy given to people in HR. At least I hope so. A lot more autonomy given to people. Another one that I think is funny, and I think companies are starting to get this, is that HR people do not equal DE&I experts.
Correct. And one DE&I expert ain't going to cut
it. Not even close. So that is its own specialty. You do need to have, depending on the size of your company, if you're small, outsource it, because you still need the perspectives of more than one. It's not just a size thing. And then also you need to make sure that your diversity team is inclusive. That means different races, different religions, different physical abilities, different neurodiversities. You need to make sure that you represent as much as you possibly can so that all those voices are heard. All of them. It's the craziest thing when I see a DE&I team, and I've seen a lot of posting about this recently, a DE&I team that's like 3 white people and 1 black lady. And I'm like, and they haven't heard of half of the diversities that are out there. And I'm going, oh Lord, why? So just, I think that companies are going to have to start to realize that this is an investment. This is now part of your people work, is this whole inclusion thing. And diversity is not enough. Inclusion and pay equity and all of these kinds of fun things are very, very important. So I want to thank you. You've added so many beautiful, wonderful tidbits today. I wish we could go on another half hour. I could talk to you probably all day about this, honestly. But I've got to release you for your Friday at some point. So thank you so very much for your time. Please tell our listeners and our viewers how they can find you and what exciting things you have going on, because you actually have some excitement right now.
Oh, Catherine, thank you. Yeah, so I'm really open to connecting. You can find me at Sam Eaton on LinkedIn, or just search for Mindability. We're pretty prolific on LinkedIn, so we like to participate. The exciting news is my book was published, and I am now very grateful to be an Amazon bestseller. It's called The Trouble with Pink Wheelbarrows. We talk all about...
I just love that name. I'm sorry. I just love it so much. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
We talk all about how to help business owners. It's funny. It's got lots of stories in there. We have lots of great stories and tips from other entrepreneurs to help you. It needed to be more than my voice. Love you to go to Amazon and see that. And if anyone wants to get in touch and they would like to discuss us maybe helping them, or we can connect you with other people in our network. I'm a huge connector. Do get in touch. The email is sam@mindabilityconsulting.org.
That's lovely. Thank you. And with that, I want to thank you again so much for being in my finale. I want to thank all of our viewers who stuck with us through another season. We will be back in the first week of January, actually. We will be back. Until then, I will be traveling. But thank you, everybody, for your support. Thank you, Sam, for being here. Love all of you and have a very happy